What is up, card fighters, and welcome back to the Prime Vanguard channel. In today's video, I'll be showcasing you my take on Solrairon after the support of Unveil Onslaught. Now, Unveil Onslaught did give Solrairon some pretty cool support cards that I've been waiting for, some nice upgrades that improve the consistency as well as the speed and combat combos of the deck. With this new support and the fact that I'm a big Solrairon fan, if you guys didn't already know after looking at my channel, I'm ready to talk about my variation of the deck. I think that in terms of consistency, Solrairon is in a way better position than it was before. It's way more flexible than it used to be, and in terms of generic support for Key to Your Sanctuary, I think that this deck still has a lot of different routes and ways it can go. However, this has been the most successful route with this deck that I have found, and I'm ready to finally show what I've come up with. Alright, so starting off with the ride line, I'm still playing the Solrairon ride line. I just don't think there's a better ride line. I think that Ryon being able to give you a soul charge or additional card to your hand is extremely important. Stogron giving you two bodies going to your Solrairon turn is very important because of the current meta that we're in with Gandiva just running around and being crazy, as well as the fact that it saves on your card advantage and gives you a counter charge right away for Solrairon with the new stuff, which is active in the early game, means that this deck has everything it needs ready to go. Alright, ready to showcase the main man. We've got 3 copies of Great Sage of Heavenly Law Solrairon. Now, Solrairon actually, with this new set, has become pretty scary. The additional 5k that this card gives with the new support means that because you're guaranteed to get 5 attacks now, 9 times out of 10, consistently speaking from my experience, with the 5 attacks guarantee now thanks to the new support, the 5k buff does matter, as well as the fact that the battle phase checking, because you're burning through a deck a little bit faster than you used to prior due to the effects of all of your cards, which means that thanks to that, you're able to increase your chances of seeing triggers more, and you're able to have a lot more battle phase interaction, which actually does throw your opponent off. And one of those cards that keeps this rhythm going is still 4 copies of Dependable Pierce Dragon. Now, this is one of the pieces that you do play in the deck that lets you actually check the top card and stack it for a normal unit to trigger Solrairon's ability, but it also is one of the units that takes itself off to the board and moves into the soul. So this is another soul charging piece that you actually have into the deck, which allows you to use the soul blasting effect of your other cards during mid-battle phase, while also hitting for good numbers because it gets 5k on its own, and then 5k from Solrairon 10 times out of 10. For orders, I am playing 1 copy of Gradius Gradle. Solrairon is still one of those decks that desperately needs your Persona Ride. Without Persona Ride, your numbers, aren't as good as the other decks. They're not as strong as the other decks. You don't hit as hard without it. The Persona Ride plus the card 1 draw is extremely important, and despite it being the only non-normal unit we play in the deck, when you draw into it and you find it, you normally hold on to it in case you need it with Solrairon, but it is mandatory in this deck. I think that over all the Regalias pieces or orders you could play that Keter has access to, this is the most important still. And now for the VIP of Solrairon, I am introducing 4 copies of Sagely Dragon, Wisdom Claw Dragon. Now this is his debut on the channel. Like I do for all my debuts, I am going to read his entire ability. We have Auto, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle from deck, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. Auto, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Solrairon in its card name, look at the top card of your deck and put it on the top or bottom of the deck. Then, Counterblast 1, reveal the top card of your deck and put it onto the board or put it into the soul. Now, this card is the perfect Solrairon piece that we needed for support. Not only does it become a 15k beatstick by itself, being called out from deck, as well as the 5k hits from Solrairon, so 20k attacker in the early game, it also gives you 2 big things. It gives you battle phase superior calling as well as top deck checking, which means that with this deck and this card alone, you have a lot of different plays you can go into. You can use this card combined with Solrairon to keep stacking your deck to see more triggers if you're not seeing those pieces. This card is also one of the few pieces that you can play in the deck that gives you more battle phase attacking if you want it, because sometimes you don't need to overextend like that. Or it also gives you soul charging for some of the soul blasting pieces that we now play into the deck that are a little bit more helpful. For my next grade 2, I am still playing 3 copies of Drilling Angel. Now, Drilling Angel is one of the free on-play soul charging cards that we do have in the deck. I actually still think that this card does have a say in the deck. It gives you soul, it gives you more board, and the fact that we do so much checking already means that if you top deck into this onto anything, you can increase your chance of getting 5 attacks. This one is not guaranteed 5 attacks, but the additional soul as well as other early game superior calling, if you need to use it prior to going onto your Solrairon attack turns, is fantastic as well. For my next grade 2, I am playing 3 copies of Knights of Piercing Catala. Now, Catala in this deck, I will say that compared to a lot of the other Solrairon cards or other Solrairon decks that I've seen, this is probably the most flexible piece. If you're extremely worried about Sol and it's just a resource you don't want to play around with, or you don't want to waste your time having to worry about, setting up for Sol, you do not have to play this. I think that this can honestly be whatever you want. It can be a beat stick, it can be a top deck checker, it can be another resource piece, it can be more copies of other cards we have in the deck. It can literally be whatever you want it to be. I just like Catala because one, it searches out for Persona Ride, and it searches out for all of these. Like these cards here, after everything I'm going to showcase in the deck, are the most important pieces that you want to see prior to starting your Solrairon turn. You have to stack the deck. You have to have your attack piece ready, as well as the fact that this card also converts itself into a draw if you fail, and it's one of the few pieces you can drop in the early game that actually assist you in rushing your opponent if you need to rush them back, and then converting itself into something. For my next grade 2, I am playing one copy of Stogron. Because I play Drilling Angel and the deck does use a little bit more CB because of Wisdom Claw and the newer cards, I felt like one copy was just right. It means that you're able to have one form of countercharge in the deck that we will have a copy of because we're going to tire our first one. So it's a target you can get off of the Drilling Angel, and whenever you see it, you know that you at least have 1 point of CC in your deck besides your grade 2 on the very first turn. And finally, a oldie but a new card in the deck is 3 copies of Academic of Verification Pyck. Now, Pyck has the following ability of Auto Rearguard Circle. When a normal unit is revealed by the ability of your Vanguard with Solrairon in its card name. Until the end of the turn, this unit gets boost and power plus 5,000. Now, in my previous Solrairon deck, I did not play this card. I was playing a bunch of different other stuff to sort of mitigate the issue that Solrairon had prior, which was making bigger numbers because I wasn't going the 5 attack route. But I've changed my mind. This card is awesome. Combined with Solrairon's ability as well as its own ability, this card becomes a 20k booster for anything that's in front of it, as well as a 20k attacker if you need to do that, if you need to attack with this card and not use it for boosting. In your non-Gandiva matchups, this card is fantastic. Gandiva is a different story. That whole matchup is not a walk in the park. You gotta fight for your life on that one. But Pyck being a 20k booster for all of your other attacks means that this is a card we can consistently use that will give us the high attack powers that we need on our 4th to 5th attack to make sure that it's just as scary towards the later game when we're trying to push as hard as we can for the win. It also doesn't cost any resource, which means that we can invest our resources in other cards, and unlike Sign Vulgar or the grade 1 Any Terrace, this card is something that if it stays on the board, you'll be able to consistently activate it because you activate Solrairon every single turn. So this card is always going to be a 20k booster that you have reliably in play unless it gets rid of by some sort of control deck or control aspect that gets rid of it. Now moving on to my grade 1s. So for my first grade 1, it is the new girl, which is 4 copies of Divine Sister Daquoise. Now Daquoise will get her debut reading, and she has the following effect of Auto Rearguard Circle once per turn. When your other unit is placed by your card's ability, cast Counterblast 1 and draw a card. If it was placed by the ability of your Vanguard with Solrairon in its card name, that placed unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. Now, I'm going to say this right now for all of my Solrairon players. If you're thinking about this between Daquoise and the Dragon Tree Wretch, don't. While I do hate the fact that we have to take extra steps to get the card draw off of this card, I will say that with how Solrairon is and just how we have Wisdom Claw and Drilling Angel and our ride line, the first ability is not difficult to get off whatsoever. The Counterblast 1 draw is not something you have to do a bunch of shenanigans for to get, unlike the Dragon Tree Wretch just gives it to you for free. Part of the reason why this card I feel like is just better than the Dragon Tree Wretch automatically is because it gives 5k power to the unit called off by Solrairon. That means that, again, we have more pushing for our 4 to 5 attacks when we're swinging at our opponent. Because naturally speaking, your first 2 attacks with Solrairon are not going to be boosted because you know that you're going to get 5 attacks, so you want the 3rd and the 5th unit to really have as much pressure as they possibly can on those late game attacks to really mess with your opponent. And because we have so much battle phase shenanigans thanks to cards like the Dragon or the ability of your Drilling Angel and this card itself, the power manipulation is just way more important. Solrairon needs as much power as it can to push as early as it possibly can get. For my last grade 1, I played 4 copies of Aegis Mare Dragon, Keter PG. And for my triggers, I'm going to say this now, my trigger lineup has been back and forth, but this is what I ended up settling on. I play 1 Keter OT, I'm still playing 3 fronts, and then I'm still playing 8 critical, as well as 4 generic heals. Now, don't forget about Solrairon, guys, but he does have some new support, and this is what it's looking like. I will say that with the testing that I've done, this has been the most successful list I've had so far. There are a couple of tweaks and changes and some cards I still want to try, and if I make those changes, I'll showcase to you guys once I confirm my feelings about them. But I think that this is a really good deck setup for Solrairon. You've got card advantage, more power, better consistency. You're hitting your top deck checks way better than you were prior to needing more copies of the grade 1 or the grade 3, because this actually does something for you. The deck's in a really good spot right now, and it's the most consistent it's ever been. But with that being said, card fighters, y'all enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good night. I'll catch you later. Peace.